don't see my, oh, here it is. You ready? Good evening and welcome to the January 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Greensboro City Council. I need a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And that passes unanimously. We are in the Katie Dorset Council Chamber. People wishing to speak must sign up by 6 p.m. by using the Q-Minder kiosk just outside the council door. See the courier for assistance. Let the record reflect that all members of council are in attendance. Our meeting is being streamed on YouTube and the replay will be available on the city's website tomorrow. Please silence any electronic devices. If you must make or receive a phone call, kindly do so from outside the chamber. We will begin tonight's meeting with a moment of silence. Thank you. Mrs. Hightower, could you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We welcome speakers to address council on specific agenda items. During the first meeting of the month, time is dedicated for speakers to address council on non-agenda items. Speakers are allotted 3 minutes for comments. The city of Greensboro is committed to promoting an environment that is free of discrimination, bias, and bullying. Zoom participants are requested to mute their microphones until they are called upon to speak. All meeting attendees are expected to respect speakers and council deliberations. People disrupting the meeting will be removed from the meeting. By statute, council members must vote on all items unless there is a direct financial interest. All votes will be moved and seconded, and the mayor will announce the vote total. We do have a number of presentation items today, and the first is F1, a resolution honoring the memory of the late Dr. Maurice
Peglo.
Peglo. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes. This is a resolution to honor the memory of the late Dr. Maurice Peglo. Whereas on October 30th, 2022, the Greensboro community lost a treasured physician and community leader with the passing of the late Dr. Maurice Peglo. Whereas Dr. Peglo was born on January 4th, 1949 in Ghana, West Africa. In 1962, Dr. Peglo entered Max Wally Secondary School in Ho, Ghana, graduating from the General Certificate of Education, ordinary level in 1967, and the GCE advanced level in 1969. Whereas Dr. Peglo pursued higher education at Guilford College in Greensboro, North Carolina, graduating in 1977. Continuing his education at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill School of Medicine, where he graduated in 1983. Whereas Dr. Peglo loved his home country and served as president of the Ghana Piedmont Association and regularly volunteered to assist the African Services Coalition. Whereas Dr. Peglo worked as an emergency room doctor at various hospitals throughout North Carolina for over a decade, ultimately settling in Greensboro, North Carolina, where he opened First Aid Emergency Clinic, practicing 2 pediatric and general family medicine for over 2 decades. Whereas Dr. Peglo served his patients in the old Ashboro neighborhood with dignity, respect, kindness, care, and knowledge, and because he's my brother-in-law and sometimes free. Whereas in addition to being a skilled physician, Dr. Peglo was also a loyal and devoted family man who will be remembered as a man of medicine, a loving husband, father, and grandfather who enjoyed making others laugh, and he will be greatly missed by all who knew him. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to express its condolences and offers its sincere appreciation and gratitude for the many years of compassionate service of the late Dr. Maurice Peglo. His legacy will be remembered by the many lives he touched. And this copy will be given to the family this evening. His daughter, Inyanam Peglo Williams, is here, and his son-in-law, who was like a son to him, Daniel Williams, is also here. Move the resolution.
That is moved by Mayor Pro Tem, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0.
And Yanam and Daniel, would you come to the podium, please? Daniel Williams. I didn't see you, Daniel.
Item E2 is a resolution to honor the memory of the late Dr. Joyce Martin Dixon. Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
And Madam Mayor, before she speak, I had pressed to speak when it says here, but can you see it? And she took my name off, I think.
Yeah, I don't see it on the list, but is it regarding the
Yeah,
first
Doc-
resolution? Please go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Peglo, I just wanted to say that I really like Dr. Peglo. He served over in our community for many, many years, and he was just such a nice man, jovial, he was very humorous, as a matter of fact. But he was very giving in our community, and he will be missed. I hated when he retired because that was a medical presence that we did not have. As you know, we live in a medical desert, and we need more doctors like him. To the family, he was certainly an honorable man, and I really like Dr. Peglo. So sorry that we have lost him.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that he coached my boys in soccer. He was a great soccer player. And their team, though many of these young people didn't know one thing about soccer when they started, they really became a challenge to a lot of the soccer teams in Greensboro. The funny thing is, when the referees would make calls that he didn't agree with, he would respond in 3 different languages. I can just imagine what he was saying, but at any rate, I will miss him too. He was a great, great brother-in-law. All right.
Thank you. Now is the time
This
for
is-
F2.
A resolution to honor the memory of the late Dr. Joyce Martin Dixon. I'm reading resolutions of family members, which is not always easy. Joyce was my cousin. And when I became mayor, she called me Cousin Mayor. And that was what she would address me as all the time. Whereas on October the 12th, 2022, this community lost one of its most generous benefactors with the passing of the late Dr. Joyce Martin Dixon. Whereas Dr. Dixon was born in Greensboro, North Carolina on March 26, 1934, She graduated from James B. Dudley High School in 1952, and then Bennett College for Women in 1956. Whereas in 1954, she married her childhood sweetheart, Lieutenant Colonel Jacob Dixon Jr., bore 2 children, Janice Gale, who passed at age 5 in Germany, and Jacob III, a captain in the United States Air Force, who perished at the age of 27. Whereas Colonel and Dr. Dixon created an annual scholarship fund in their daughter's memory. Whereas in retirement, Dr. Dixon co-founded with her husband Creative Management Technology, Inc., a government service firm providing integrated operations, maintenance, logistics, and custodial services to government and private client nationwide. Whereas Dr. Dixon, through a variety of positions and careers that held, became an international leader, leaving a global footprint. She initiated Linkages to Life, an organ, tissue, and bone marrow donation awareness program, assisted with the building of several South African schools, and honored everyday people through such programs as initiatives as Unsung Heroes, Shirts of Blue, Blue Collar Professions, Mama, It's Okay to Stay Home and Raise Your Child. Whereas Dr. Dixon was an enthusiastic philanthropist with projects and campaigns close to her heart, Dr. Dixon collaborated with a team of 9 women to professionally decorate parlors in 5 residential halls and 1 academic hall on the property of her alma mater, Bennett College for Women, in 2007. And she coordinated the placement of a fitness center and a beauty shop on the Bennett College campus. Whereas Dr. Dixon donated the largest alumni bestowment of $1 million in the history of Bennett College for the Martin Dixon Intergenerational Center, which was built on the same site where her father had operated a barbershop in 1940. And she continued to fund additional improvements and projects on and around and on behalf of Bennett College. Whereas Dr. Dixon was the recipient of numerous awards and honors for her leadership role from Bennett College, which included an honorary doctorate of humane letters and the Women of Substance Award. Additionally, she was honored by the United Negro College Fund's Outstanding Alumni Award and named Brevard County's Florida Woman of Distinction. Whereas Dr. Dixon served on numerous boards and commissions, including Brevard Community College Board of Trustees, Vice President of the Astronauts Memorial Foundation Board, Director of the Southern Area of the Lynx Incorporated, President of Cocoa Beach Women's Golf Association, and the Hayes Taylor Memorial Young Men's Christian Association Board of Management. Whereas Dr. Dixon continued to be active throughout the Greensboro community and her home church, Providence Baptist Church. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to express its sense of loss and offer its condolences and sincere appreciation and gratitude for the many years of dedicated public service and philanthropy by Dr. Joyce Martin Dixon. The legacy she leaves will be remembered by the residents of Greensboro. That a copy of this will be delivered to the family as a symbol of gratitude by the residents of the city of Greensboro and the students and alumni of Bennett College for her continued and contributions locally and worldwide. We have with us today 2 of her relatives, one by marriage and one by the fact that they lived on the same street, a couple of houses from each other forever, Valerie Spalding. I know you little, right? And you always knew you Spalding. And Mike McKinney are here to receive this. So if you'll meet me at the podium, I'd appreciate it. Oh, move this resolution.
So it has been moved by Mrs. Johnson and seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0.
To the Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, and the other council persons serving. I want to say thank you on behalf of our family. What an honor to recognize her legacy and the work that she has done over the years. Her footprint can be seen all around the world, and particularly here in Greensboro. She was a humanitarian, a philanthropist. She loved people and she loved children. And she loved education, which is why she was so dedicated to her alma mater at Bennett College and the Martin Dixon Intergenerational Center, and all of the work she did there, and the work that she did at North Carolina Central University and Fayetteville State University, and so many others, too many to count. So we thank you on behalf of our family, Reggie, Benny, Valerie, myself, and so many others for bestowing this honor on her legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that several years ago, prior to the Greenway coming through by my office, there was a village of homeless people who had tents and so forth. And Joyce Dixon had come over to the office and she had seen this. And a month or so later, she called and she said, a group of ladies at Providence Baptist Church have put together some bags of things I think maybe the homeless community behind your office could use, the hats and gloves and socks and so forth. She said, do you think that would be good? I said, it'd be great. We'll be glad to take them out there. And so she brought all of these wonderful bags of hats with hats, gloves, and socks and things that were warm. And we took them back and we gave them to the people. I just wanted you to know that because of all the great things that she's done, and that I don't mean by any means that that's not great. She had a sensitivity to people who were in need, and she responded. And I wanted people to know, not only did she do a lot in terms of organ donations, but she did a lot for people that she felt were in need. So I wanted to just share that. Thank you.
Item number F3 is a resolution honoring the memory of the late Mary Hines Griffin. Mrs. Hightower?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe that her daughter, Karen Griffin, is here along with her pastor, Reverend Dr. Darren Mitchell, and others are here. So after I read the resolution, if you'll come up to receive it. Okay. Resolution to honor the memory of the late Mary Hines Griffin. Whereas on November 5th, 2022, this community lost one of its outstanding community leaders with the passing of the late Mary Hines Griffin. Whereas Mrs. Griffin was born in High Point, North Carolina on December 12, 1935, graduated from William Penn High School, earned a Bachelor of Science BS degree in History Education, a Master's of Science MS degree in History from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, NC-A&T, and an MS degree in Vocational Education from North Carolina State University in Raleigh, North Carolina. Whereas She was a special education instructor in Alamance County at Western Alamance High School and a vocational special needs industrial education coordinator at Southeast High School in Guilford County. After retirement, she continued to work as a consultant to the Special Needs Division, North Carolina Department of Instruction, and also volunteered in reading programs for elementary school age children. Whereas with 46 consecutive years of membership, Mrs. Griffin earned Silver Star status in the Beta Iota Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha, aka sorority, served as the chapter's scholarship chairperson, worked on the annual cotillion, and dedicated several years to being a graduate advisor to North Carolina A&T State University, Bennett College, and the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. Whereas Mrs. Griffin received copious awards during her tenure as an educator and counselor within the Guilford County school system, assisted in the collection of over 1 million books to be shipped to South Africa, received the Leah K. Frazier Award, the highest AKA society honor for service with a global perspective. Whereas Mrs. Griffin was deeply devoted in religious, social, and educational programs as demonstrated by her commitment and leadership within the African Methodist Episcopal AME Zion Church, participation in the sanctuary choir, the usher board, and the Women's Home and Overseas Missionary Society. She was influential in leadership roles such as youth director, advisor to the Teenage Missionary Society, TAMS, Sunday school teacher, and director of Christian education. Whereas Mrs. Griffin, with other church historians, organized the writing and publishing of the first history book of the 100 churches in the West Central North Carolina AME Zion Conference, which is on file at the Library of Congress, established a subsidiary of the Department of Christian Education, which raised thousands of dollars for the Dr. Frank White Scholarship and helped to appoint AME church positions within both the Greensboro District and the Western Central North Carolina Conference. Whereas Mrs. Griffin served a variety of professional and civic organizations, including the North Carolina Association of Educators, the North Carolina Vocational Association, the Board of Directors, and President of the North Carolina Vocation Advisor Council, a lifetime member of Jack and Jill of America, Mid-Atlantic Regional Associates Chairperson, and other member and charter member of Top Ladies of Distinction, Guilford County Chapter. And now therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City Council wishes to express its sense of loss and offer its condolences, sincere appreciation, and gratitude for the many years of unwavering public service by Mrs. Mary Hines Griffin. The legacy she leaves continues to reverberate throughout the communities of Greensboro. That a copy of this resolution shall be delivered to the family of the late Mrs. Mary Hines Griffin as a symbol of the gratitude of the residents of the city of Greensboro and the members of the AME Church for her contributions locally and nationally, adopted this 3rd day of January 2023. And I would like to move the resolution.
Second.
So that was moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0.
And if her daughter and whomever will come forward. And yes.
Good evening. I'm Karen Griffin, and I want to thank you so much for this recognition on behalf of my mother. She was an epitome of giving. She loved children. She gave up her life. I've talked to many of the principals and assistant principals that she worked under, and I heard the same thing. She didn't care where a child was. If they were in need, she would drive to their home so they would not drop out of school and make sure they came back to the school and finished their education, because it was so important to have that high school diploma to make it in life. And those are the stories I heard throughout the time we were preparing for her burial. I talked to Robert Brown, who is the owner of B&C Associates. He worked with my mother to get those over 1 million books to South Africa. I am a retired federal employee. I worked for the U.S. Department of Energy, and at the time, Secretary Hazel O'Leary was in charge, and I called her office and said, we have a need. And I knew she had a delegation going to South Africa. And when I shared the story, she said, I will get those books. And she sent tractors and trailers down here to get those books to be on her flight to make sure they made South Africa to have an impact on millions of kids in South Africa. So I just wanted to share, my mother just gave. She never looked for any attention. She just gave wholeheartedly, and she did that to the day she died. So I'd say thank you so much for this opportunity to say those words on her behalf. And thank you, Councilwoman Hightower, for reaching out and making this happen. Again, thank you.
It was my honor to do it. Mrs. Hines Griffin certainly has had a stellar educational career, but a career in the community as well. She certainly was a servant that we all want to be like. So thank you for letting her serve us and sacrificing. I know some of the time you could have been with her, but she gave to many children who will benefit for years to come. So I'm glad we were able to honor her today. I also want to say to Yvonne and as well, I have nominated both ladies for the Ruth Wicker Women's Center as well. And Dr. Dixon as well as Mary Hines Griffin. Thank you.
She was my soror, so she was a great lady.
Thank you. Item F4 is a resolution supporting 2023 as the year of the trail. Ms. Luzawader?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I believe that some staff, Palmer McIntyre, is going to come up and say a few words after we do the resolution. But I also wanted to recognize those other staff members in attendance. I saw Phil Fleshman in the back, Liz Jernigan. Did I miss anybody? Okay, great. Thank you. Whereas the city of Greensboro's natural beauty is critical to its residents' quality of life, health, and economic well-being. Whereas the trails that span across our community are an integral part of the recreational and transportation possibilities of our area, and they also promote an enjoyment of scenic beauty by our residents and our visitors. Whereas the parks, greenways, trails, and natural areas in our community are welcoming to all and provide a common ground for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds to access our rich and diverse natural, cultural, and historic resources. Whereas the city of Greensboro's natural assets and resources are integral to disaster recovery and resiliency to climate change for future generations. Whereas there are more than 100 miles of trails and greenways available in Greensboro, including garden trails to our expansive paved greenways and our hiking and mountain biking trails around the city lakes. Whereas trails offer quality of life benefits to all as expressions of local community character and pride, as outdoor workshops for science education, as tools for economic revitalization, as free resources for healthy recreation, as accessible alternative transportation, and as sites for social and cultural events. Whereas the North Carolina General Assembly designated 2023 as the year of the trail in North Carolina to promote and celebrate the state's extensive network of trails that showcase our state's beauty, vibrancy, and culture. Whereas North Carolina is known as the Great Trails State, and now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the City of Greensboro supports the 2023 as the Year of the Trail in collaboration with the members of the Great Trails State Coalition. Adopted this the third day of January 2023. And I would like to pass that, make the motion to pass that resolution, Madam Mayor.
Second.
So that has been moved by Ms. Abuzawader, seconded by Mrs. Thurm. Council, please vote. And that passes 9-0.
Mayor, are you seeing our votes come up? Because I'm voting after you're saying.
I just know that's going to pass 9-0.
Oh, okay.
Some of the other ones you won't hear me do quite as quickly.
I was like, I know. Okay, psychic voting. I got, okay. She kept saying that. I was like, but I didn't vote yet.
I just can't imagine anybody would vote against it.
Well, I would hope not.
Yeah.
That's true.
Thank you all so much for that vote for the resolution. I appreciate it. My name is Palmer McIntyre, and I'm a resident of Greensboro. I work for Piedmont Land Conservancy, but I'm here today representing the Great Trails State Coalition. I've been working on this initiative for about 18 months now. And 2023 North Carolina Year of the Trail, it's the largest celebration of outdoor recreation in North Carolina's history. It's a really big deal. And North Carolina is the first state to do such a high profile campaign celebrating trails in all of the country. So it's really putting us on the map out there. And it really is the result of a lot of partners across the state working together for the past few years to raise the profile of the many benefits of trails, the health benefits, the economic benefits, the transportation benefits, and quality of life benefits. And we realize all those benefits here in Greensboro with our trail networks. So the goals of the campaign of North Carolina Year of the Trail are to inspire people of all ages, backgrounds, and abilities to try trails and get outside, to boost outdoor recreation tourism across the state, to promote safe and responsible use of trails, aligning with Outdoor NC's Leave No Trace principles, and to advance diversity and inclusion on trails, and to demonstrate the importance of trails to our elected leaders. So the campaign itself is a public awareness campaign. There'll be messages delivered through a variety of platforms, digital, social media, television, print, outdoor billboards, et cetera. So we're just encouraging people to find trails and really discover our amazing state in new ways. So this effort's been led by the Great Trails State Coalition, which is a coalition of nonprofit, local government, and industry partners working together to encourage sustained state investment in trails, because historically North Carolina has not significantly invested in trails. Most of the money comes through federal pass-through dollars. And we're branding North Carolina as the Great Trails State, and that builds on our reputation of the Good Road State. You gotta remember that. So why are trails a good investment for communities? I mean, not only are trails the most highly desired community amenity in survey after survey, but there are North Carolina-based studies that show that for every dollar invested in a trail, $1.72 is returned annually in benefits. So trails are a quality of life asset. They are a critical part of community infrastructure, and they're an investment that more than pays for itself. So I'm here today to say thank you for adopting this resolution, and to express appreciation for your support and enthusiasm for trails, and to invite you to continue to be a partner for trails and working with the Great Trails State Coalition to help secure that state funding for trails. And I think Greensboro is maybe the first or one of the first communities to adopt a resolution for Year of the Trail. So congratulations on that. And I want to finish by saying that, Greensboro is on the map as a trails destination, due to our incredible network of watershed trails, our growing greenway system, and our award-winning parks. And so thank you. And I want to also say thank you to our Parks and Recreation Department. They're amazing partners. They do a great job, and they're really, they're recognized across the state as being good at what they do. So I appreciate their efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Item E5 is a resolution supporting the reclassification of the Guilford Metro 911 dispatchers. And it's my honor to read this resolution. Whereas in September of 2021, U.S. Representatives Norma J. Torres and Brian Fitzpatrick announced their 911 Saves Act passed the House as part of the fiscal year 2022 National Defense Authorization Act. The 911 Saves Act is a bipartisan legislation to reclassify 911 dispatchers from office and administrative support to protective service occupations in the Office of Management and Budget's Standard Occupational Classification SOC catalog. Whereas 911 dispatchers are the first line of response during an emergency, and they deserve to be classified in a way that recognizes their work is on par with the work of other public servants classified as first responders. Whereas Senator Richard Burr introduced the classification bill in the United States Senate, where it remained. Whereas 911 dispatchers are working with elected officials to reintroduce this legislation with the next Congress, and local support will assist in this effort. Whereas the Greensboro City Council is in support of such a legislative change. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Greensboro that the Greensboro City Council is in support of bipartisan legislation to reclassify 911 dispatchers from office and administrative support to protective service occupations in the Office of Management and Budget's Standard Occupational Classifications SOC catalog. And I will move that.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. Council, please vote. And again, I'm going to use my powers of deduction to say that this is going to pass 9-0. I want to say it is truly my honor to be able to read this resolution. And one of the lines are that 911 is the first line, and they truly are the first line in every response. And very often they're speaking to people who are having the worst day of their lives. And our 911 does a terrific job responding and getting them the services that they need. We saw for almost 2 weeks, just a few days ago, how 911 received thousands of calls for people that were without power, that trees have come down, and their work cannot be overstated how important it is. So thank you for all the work that you do, and I hope they act on this as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mayor Vaughn, members of council. As most all of you know that have been in the 911 center, you know the busyness of that center with the critically low staffing levels that we've had going on 3 years now. These two rock stars behind me are just two of the ones that have shown up on their night shifts doing the work with 7 people short from just one team. And the mental stress that is created just with the staffing levels, not even counting the calls that they're taking, is unheard of, and it's over the top right now. So this classification effort of ours really needs this support, and we really thank you for it.
Thank you.
Mayor Vaughn.
Yes.
Mayor, if I could, I just want to recognize Director Director Jones is very humble. She's represented this city and our Metro 911 Center on the state and national level for a number of years with this effort. And she's opened up her center to council. I heard rumors that Councilwoman Hightower showed back up after her tour and wanted to work. But seriously, she is a true advocate for what they do. And this is huge for not only our city, but the folks that do answer the call when people need them. So I want to say thank you to Director Jones for all that she does to lead our agency in the city.
Thank you. Item F5, item F6 is recognition of 2022 Shoppers Day event. Gary, you want to?
Thank you, Mayor Vaughn, members of the City Council. My name is Gary Canapino with the City of Greensboro Community Relations Office. And part of my role there is I'm the official liaison to the Greensboro Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities. And we'd like to show you a little summary video of our Shoppers Day event that we held on December 1st this year. Shoppers Day, which Dr. Wells was willing to host for us on very short notice. So thank you for that. It's our main event of the year where basically we take as many disabled youth or adults from Guilford County. We bring them out to the Four Seasons Mall for a day of holiday events, shopping, and we do this all entirely self-funded and through volunteers or in-kind contributions. And we have a short video that I can show you. I promise we have a video. So we just want to thank the council for your support. This year we registered just over 965 shoppers, if I remember correctly. And hopefully this year, the goal is to beat that. So we'll see you again in about 12 months. Thank you.
Dr. Wells?
I want to say that it was a great experience being out there for the Shoppers Day. And I learned something that day. And he said it's self-supporting. and it's called the Mayor's. I think we need to kind of support that effort because it really is a great experience for the students who are assigned to someone who has a disability. So they learn from each other. It's a valuable experience. So I think we need to think about that. Budget time.
Mr. Buswaiter?
Yes, I just wanted to say I had not missed one of the Shoppers Days in many, many years. And that morning, I unfortunately had to call, let Sharon Williams know that I was unable to attend. I had just had some surgery and was having slight complication. And immediately she got a hold of Dr. Wells, and Dr. Wells was able to fill in. But I really want next year for as many council members as can go, because when you leave after watching these children and adults being able to shop with other people, you will come away with a sense of what the holiday season is really about. So, I really hope that next year we can all come together and help fund them a little better and, do all the things that we need to do in order to make it a good experience for them. And to thank all the volunteers that help, because I know a lot of the high schools help, a lot of the community organizations help. So it's just something very, very worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I am going to take prerogative of the chair and move up a public hearing item. It has to be reheard because there was an error with the publication. Both of these items did pass at our last meeting, but we do have to redo them. We do have two speakers here if there are any questions, but again, we did have a rather long public hearing about it at the last meeting. Item I1 is a public hearing for an ordinance for rezoning a portion of 3234 Horsepen Creek Road, BCS Holding LLC for Judy and William Audette. And item I2, a public hearing for an ordinance for rezoning for portion of 3216 and 3234 and all of 3238 and 3240 Horsepen Creek Road and all of 4209 and 4213 Piermont Drive, BCS Holding, Inc. for Rhonda Anderson on behalf of Young Men's Christian Association of Greensboro, Inc., Don Cato on behalf of Cato Investment Properties, LLC, and Judy and William Audette and Carol Sellers. Items I1 and I2 both require a statement of consistency. We did hear it at the last meeting. I don't know if it's necessary for Mr. Kirkman to do another presentation. All in favor, say aye.
I'll move the item.
So you need a
I
statement.
have a quick question, Brother Dak.
Okay,
I just want to make sure, I was reading all this last night, and I just wanted to be sure I was clear on I2 is the one that was the zoning commission denied. And it was appealed. So I guess I was trying to make sure that they addressed the concerns that for the reason for the denial.
they did. It was
And
a rather long public hearing, and I don't believe anybody spoke against the item at our last city council meeting.
Right, that is correct. There was no opposition. And yes, you are correct. That one was denied, but then appealed. And the applicants made several revisions to their zoning conditions to get the approval.
So I saw the conditions,
Mhm.
and one of the concerns was, I think, driving through the
Right.
parking lot with the density that was initially proposed, but it
Correct.
came down to 250, and then they eliminated an access.
Yeah,
That-
and they
that was the
reconfigured
concern.
how access was going to be to the site and then reduced the unit count. And that addressed the opposition and concerns from the zoning commission.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay, that's what I wanted to be
Yes.
clear on, to make sure
Correct.
that I understood. Okay, thank you, Mike.
So that has been moved by Mr. Matheny, seconded by Mrs. Hoffman. Zach, can you read the statement of consistency?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the rezoning request for the property identified as a portion of 3234 Horsepen Creek Road from R3 and CDPI to PI to be consistent with the adopted Greensboro 2040 comprehensive plan, and considers action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reason. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan's future built form map and future land use map.
Council, please vote. Now you know why I guessed on the other vote.
Yes, yeah, I was waiting to see if you go get it.
I'm gonna say it's another 9-0, but
Councilmember,
Sharon's always the wild card.
Right.
So, and that passes 9-0. Item I2 also requires a statement of consistency.
The Greensboro City Council believes
So
that its
moved
action
by
to,
Mr. Matheny, seconded by
sorry.
Mrs. Abuzawader. Mr. Matheny?
The Greensboro City Council believes that its action to approve the rezoning request for the properties identified as a portion of 3216 and 3234 Horsepen Creek Road, all of 3238 and 3240 Horsepen Creek Road, and all of 4209 and 4213 Piermont Drive from CDPI and R3 to PUD Plan Unit Development to be consistent with the adopted Greensboro 2040 Comprehensive Plan, considers action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reason. The request is consistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map.
Council, please vote. And I would guess that based on the previous vote, this will be 9-0 as well. I apologize that you had to come back, but thank you. I'm glad we could get to it early. Let's see. Now we move to the public comment portion. Now is the time to recognize people wishing to speak on non-agenda items. This is a time of listening for counsel. Generally, the subject will be noted, and if it requires action or a request, the city manager will note as such and provide steps for any required response and after action. Please leave your contact details with the city clerk to help facilitate any discussion. We do have two people on Zoom. I don't know if they have checked in. Dr. Ahmad and Christine.
yes,
Hoffner.
ma'am, they are both online.
Okay, Dr. Ahmad. Let's see if we could go to Mrs. Hoffner first, and then we can come back to Dr. Ahmad.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Christine Hoffner. I have a question for y'all about City Council's position on police accountability, specifically your stance toward Officer Hamilton regarding his killing Joseph Lopez in indictment for manslaughter. The background for my question is, in a nutshell, the DA indicted Hamilton based on SBI evidence. Then he was fired. GPD took that action, but ultimately the appeals processes that had come down to a city council decision. Now Hamilton's defense lawyer, Rasabi, is being paid by the city, and paying him is unambiguously a city council's decision. So your constituents need to know your thinking. What justifies this apparent contradiction around police accountability? And certainly an obfuscation of it. I can't imagine what justifies it. I mean, Rasabi Law Partners offer 24-hour legal representation to the Greensboro Police Officers Association. But perhaps Hamilton wasn't a member, but then why does the city pick up that slack? Of course, innocent until proven guilty. But wouldn't any claim Hamilton might have had on the city be severed since he was fired, which is clearly a finding by GPD that he wasn't simply doing his job? Why should the city of Greensboro, that is Greensboro's citizens, foot his bill through the taxes we pay? Then there's the policy upshot of your decision to pay for defending a policeman whose indictment cries out for accountability. Your response leads Greensboro citizens to wonder, or rather worry, about City Council's ultimate view of this type of case. City Council's decision to defend Hamilton makes it hard for Greensboro citizens to ascertain what principles City Council will truly stand behind. Now, your constituents have good cause to distrust you because your approach to holding police accountable is shockingly superficial. Aside from appearances, there's the actual consequences of even implicit support of wrongdoing. That makes it difficult to actually fix it. To repeat, your constituents need to know how you justify interfering with police accountability. Please take my remaining time to explain the decision you all have committed to here. What are you thinking?
Thank you.
Well, I'm not done. Are you answering?
No, you have, if you would like to continue to speak for the next 25 seconds, you may.
Okay, some other questions. What do you make of Rosabi's claim that City Council is anti-cop? Does your payment for Hamilton's defense have anything to do with courting the police association? And how do you respond to how odd this payment appears? It's easy to imagine that Rosabi denouncing City Council as anti-cop could influence you to pay his invoices. Surely you see that your actions send a message about how you ultimately evaluate the importance of police accountability.
Expired.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Has Dr. Ahmad,
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak a minute. I'm sitting here because we talk about transparency, but I knew nothing about this. So when did an email come about what happened here? Because I'm unaware what happened here. I'm very uninformed about this situation. Can I get an answer? Or am I not going to get an answer?
Councilwoman,
Or somebody gonna
are
talk
you
to me?
referring to the questions that
I'm
the
not
speaker
talking
just
about
posed?
questions. I'm talking about the situation that
Okay.
has occurred and the results. Because my last time I was told, we were waiting for the SBI to make a decision of whatever investigation. And
That's right.
that wasn't in our hands. So
That's right.
so this goes back a couple of months and we did watch the video and have discussions surrounding it.
I have
So-
not seen the video
This-
other than the one that was,
This was
well,
a-
I saw the video where initial incident occurred, not the conclusion of what I just heard today, of charges being made or any of that.
Well,
Where did that come from?
that was the DA's office. I mean, that
Right, but
was-
we have not been informed of that.
Yeah, we were.
Well, y'all were. Let me speak for Sharon. Let me speak for Sharon Hightower. Can you send me an email that I missed?
I'll go back and verify and look at all the updates that I provided, and then we can provide you with the appropriate information.
I'd like one too.
Because I ain't seen it.
Trey, that was probably before my time. So you can add me, please. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I'll have to ask you to leave. Dr. Ahmad?
Yes, good evening. Now that we're in 2023, I'm coming back to ask that the council make a priority of looking at our water situation. It's very well known that those living in the Cape Fear River Basin are drinking toxic water. And every day, 250,000 of the people drink toxic water. They bathe in it, they brush their teeth, they cook their food. And our water contains the PFAS chemicals, the forever chemicals. It does not dissipate from the body. It's a carcinogen. PFAS chemicals are carcinogens that cause thyroid cancer, liver cancer, and other diseases in the body. And in August, the city of Cary invested in filtration for their city to take out the PFAS chemicals. And I'm hoping that the city council will take this measure up to protect us from this water. It's an urgent matter. And I'm hoping that maybe we could think about a bond to pay for it. I think if people understood the magnitude of what we're enduring, people would be willing to pay to make sure we get the filtration, because it touches everyone's lives. It's a real hazard. So in 2023, please, from the council and the city manager, please bring this item up for discussion. Just don't let it fall to the shadows. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We are doing repairs to the Mitchell water treatment plant, and I know it's well in excess of $35 million, and those repairs are underway right now.
Do they
I know
include,
that our water resources department, they actually look at the numbers just about daily. And so I believe that as a city, we are being as aggressive as we can. And actually, we were noticed many years ago as the first city being proactive on the PFOS and PFOA issue.
We're drinking that was toxic water still. EPA is helping. I don't know what the guidelines are, but the EPA is helping municipalities with this issue. Maybe that's something that can be looked into, because you just can't buy an ordinary filter and filter it out. We're poisoning ourselves. It's no fault of our own, but that's the situation. And so repairs are good, but it's going to bring filtration to because there's technology that will remove the chemicals to 99%. So there is help out there. It's worth looking into.
And those are the upgrades to the plant that we are doing.
To have the filtration?
Yes.
Oh, thank God.
Our next speakers are Hester Petty, followed by Lewis Pitts, followed by Billy Belcher.
Won't fit on the thing, so I'm just gonna. It's safe tape, it won't stick. Good evening, my name is Hester Petty. On September the 10th, 2016, Zara Jones and 3 friends were harassed. One was tased, and all were arrested for essentially being downtown while black. I know that because the charges were either dropped or dismissed. In 2018, City Council got permission from a court to watch the police body cam footage, but a gag order was issued also. That was appealed to a higher court, and last month it was kicked back to the lower court. The News and Record reported that, and I quote, "The citizens of Greensboro were kept in the dark for 6 years." And that's kind of sort of true, but many local activists and organizations have been following this case since 2016. And local print and TV news have covered the case from the beginning. In 2019, Zara Jones filed a federal lawsuit against the 4 Greensboro police officers that accosted him that night. And the city, that is to say the taxpayers, have been paying those officers legal fees since that time. So Zared filed the lawsuit pro se. So he was pretty much on his own against the lawyers that City Council hired to fight the lawsuit. And they did fight the lawsuit for 4 years, and no surprise, the judge ruled against Zared on July 5th, 2022. Yeah, it's been going on that long. What you're looking at is what Zared has had to go through to get justice. From 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, it was always on his to-do list. David and Goliath comes to mind. And what was Zared asking for in the lawsuit? His first request was the release of the body cam videos to the public. He also wanted a public apology and admission from the GPD and the officers involved that his arrest was illegal and his rights were violated. He also wanted training for the officers involved in anger management, de-escalation, and constitutional rights. He also asked that constitutional rights training be done throughout the GPD. He also wanted $833 for his medical bills. In punitive damages, he was asking for $300,000. I don't know how much we taxpayers have paid to those private lawyers, but I sure wish that money could have gone to Zara Jones instead. I want to petition the court to release all of the body cam footage of what happened to Zara Jones and his friends that night. Even Mr. Wasabi is asking for that too.
Louis Pitts, followed by Del Stone, followed by Louis Medina.
Good evening, council. My name is Louis Pitts. Happy New Year. But as you can see, we've shifted more to the underbelly of our city, which is quite the opposite of the very deserving resolutions and honors that we were giving out. I wanted to return to the issue that Ms. Hoffner was raising. In November of 2021, a Greensboro police officer named Hamilton shot in the face and killed Joseph Lopez. Months went by, apparently with no punitive action against Officer Hamilton by the city. And then in 2022, a federal civil rights lawsuit was filed naming you all as city council as a defendant and Officer Hamilton as a defendant. And on the same day, the district attorney indicted Officer Hamilton. Then later that same day, you, the city, fired that police officer. Now, what I have learned from a public records request, Ms. Hightower, that I have right here, is that you all, meaning we all, are paying Mr. Rosabi, who's the Rudy Giuliani of Greensboro, to represent Officer Hamilton. And further, you have paid more than 6 times the amount to Mr. Rosabi, $54,765 to be exact, to defend Officer Hamilton. That's 6 times more than you're paying your own silk stocking lawyer to defend you. Now, why are you paying for the civil defense, meaning in the federal civil rights suit, to defend the cop that shot wrongly in the face Mr. Lopez, the same Officer Hamilton that you fired? Now, on October the 24th of last year, I wrote a records request asking the city for all the documents that might explain any of the contracts or responsibilities that might explain why are you entitled to, under some obligation, to pay that money to Amiel Rosabi to defend the officer, and I've got no response. Thereafter, I wrote again to Kurt Brenneman, not his fault. I'm sure it lies with the legal department. I still don't have a response. Why are you paying money to defend the officer you fired? The public needs to know this. And so I'm very serious. And I hope you are aware that you're doing that, because if you're not, somebody's hiding that from you. And we, the public, would like some clarification. Could we have a little bit of that now?
That's really not what this time is for. As we said earlier, certainly Mr. Watts or somebody else from his office can reach out to you after this meeting.
I've asked formally under the law and not been given it. I don't know why I would expect now, unless you will at least direct somebody to give me an answer, which can be shared to the public. Will any of you ask and direct that information?
I am sure that Mr. Watts will explain what the financial obligation from the city is.
And
Ms. Attorney Watts, would you please do that?
It would be confidential legal advice that I wouldn't want to talk about in public.
So what now? Can you say that again?
yes,
It would be confidential legal advice that I wouldn't want to discuss in public for fear of losing the attorney-client privilege.
So can we have an attorney-client privilege session? Because I know nothing.
I
Okay.
will say
That
that
information-
we did get we
we-
did get an email on June 6th regarding the indictment.
regarding the
okay.
indictment.
I know nothing.
The idea that there's
This is not a discussion at this point.
how fair is that? How fair is that to open government?
Well, the city council does have the right to have, and the city to have confidential legal advice.
You put that in writing. How come it's been over 2 months and you won't even put that in writing? Well, this is supposed to be rule of law.
Thank you.
That's why I mentioned Rudy Giuliani. We're playing
Thank you.
rules like it was Trumpism here. Help us, y'all.
Mr.
That's why
Pitts,
you
please
are
stop or
elected.
you're going to have to leave. Del Stone, followed by Louis Medina, followed by Bruce Chambliss, if he signed in.
I'm Del Stone with WO, the Working Class and House Organizing Alliance. So I echo those calls for transparency. But tonight I want to talk about someone who I know this council is very familiar with, the top billionaire in this town who owns countless properties and whose penthouse overlooks the same park that this city is intent on cleaning up for the elite. This is Roy Edward Carroll II, and he's worth $4 billion. He owns and operates Carroll Companies, Carroll Farm Operations, Carroll Hornaday Road Investments, CIP Construction, Carroll Industrial Development, Alaris Homes, Be Safe Storage, RA Carroll Management, Carroll Hospitality, the Carroll Family Foundation, Snap Publications, aka the Rhino Times, among others. He's proud that he has no outside partners or equity and paints himself as a self-made billionaire. But that didn't stop him from taking $3.85 million in free money from the federal government in the form of forgiven PPP loans. And that's just what's easy to find with a quick search. While the people got pennies and stimulus checks and are still expected to pay back their student debt, capitalists love to praise billionaires who are self-made. But the truth is that no billionaire is self-made. No one makes that amount of money without exploiting other people's time, well-being, and desperation to simply survive. Roy Carroll's no different. He made his money buying properties and holding on to them, monopolizing housing so he can sell it back to tenants at inflated rates. He made his money by paying his workers crap and treating them that way. He made his money buying off politicians so they'd give him kickbacks for his development projects. He made his money by laundering his profits through his charity to reap back in tax credits. He also made his money by not caring about the people who rent his properties. Last month, a family of 4 was forcibly evicted from one of Carroll's apartment complexes by mistake. The parents, who are deaf and their 2 young children, came home to find all their belongings trashed because Carroll was trying to evict someone. It's not clear who was supposed to be evicted. It's not clear why it took the better part of a month for Carroll Properties to issue even a lukewarm apology, much less do anything materially to help make things right. What is clear is that these kinds of forced evictions are commonplace. So commonplace that the contracted company didn't even think twice before pulling out a family's beds, chairs, clothing, pictures, valuables, and important documents and tossing them in the trash. There are no protections against this happening to people. No way for victims of this kind of trauma to seek recourse. This family had to sleep on the floor and set up a GoFundMe to try and get their life back together. And Roy Carroll did nothing until he was called out by the media and needed to save face. This city allows this to happen. Does this city work for us or does it work for billionaires? The answer is painfully obvious. Those in power do not care about us, the kinds of people who are vulnerable to evictions and abuse. Why would they? Roy Carroll funnels thousands of dollars into the campaigns of politicians, including Zach Matheny. Roy Carroll cuts their checks. Roy Carroll and rich landlords like him are the ones our representatives are here to serve.
Louis Medina, followed by Philip Marsh, followed by Ainsley Spradlin.
Hello, I'm Louis Medina. I'm with the Working Class and Houseless Organizing Alliance. Today, I'm here to talk about the fact that my organization is anti-capitalist, which I'm sure everybody's figured out. Anybody's paying attention, I'm sure all you know. What does that mean? What does it mean to be anti-capitalist? First, you have to know what capitalism means, right? Some people seem to think it means democracy. That's interesting considering we get to vote sometimes, and once a month, I get to go to this clown show of city council and speak for 3 minutes. Maybe, right? For instance, my comrade was just kicked out for quote unquote an outburst. As you know, all these people are here talking about police brutality, police that work for you, police that you're apparently paying to defend, who go out and brutalize people of color every day. Seems it's not a democracy. So what is capitalism? Well, it is our current state of history. It's an economic foundation, but it's also our current state in history. There's under this state of history, there are people like me, workers, right? There's people like Lord Carroll or Zach Matheny who are quote unquote the bosses, right? Every day I have to go to work and I have to trade my labor for a wage. Now, my labor is traded for a wage and it's semi-consensual. And then I get to eat hypothetically, and I maybe get a house under my head with a mushroom and clouding of houselessness. So it's obviously not guaranteed. And what do they get? What do they get for our wage? Well, they get millions, they get billions. They reap our labor in the form of profits. Profit is unpaid labor, right? So what is this? It's not democracy. What is it? It's a dictatorship. Has been demonstrated today. I mean, these security guards, these private security guards for whatever company they work for, they get paid. They just, quote unquote, do their job, right? When they watch Nancy Vaughn ignore people talking about police brutality, and just because she feels, quote unquote, disrespected, my comrade's thrown out, right? Clearly not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. A dictatorship is it's a dictatorship of the wealthy. It's a dictatorship of the capitalist class, dictatorship of people like Zach Matheny, though, in the large spectrum of things, Zach Matheny is a little puppy dog, right? Roy Carroll's a little bigger than that, right? And they're everywhere and they control everything. What do you do with a dictatorship? Well, you bring it to ruin. It's an unacceptable situation. You destroy it. And that's what we mean when we say we're anti-capitalist. Ty, he wants that email. That's what we asked for. We kicked him out. Give him that email. That's for me.
All right, I guess you know where the door is. Philip Marsh?
Good afternoon. So wanted to kind of follow up, from my last meeting, which was on site at our East Washington Street tour that I took with some of you. I submitted a request for a grant during that time and wanted to follow up on the status of that. So if I could have the city manager's office or Dr. Wells, whoever that would come from with regards to an update on that. If we can get a status update on that. Additionally, we've exchanged emails during the month of December. And so it seemed to me that you were very talkative during those emails. So I didn't know if you had any questions for me with regards to what we were discussing. So I wanted to make myself available as well for that. If you have any questions for me. Yes,
Talking.
Mayor Vaughn, yes. No questions?
No, I think I made my comments pretty clear.
They weren't clear, so that's why I was asking.
Okay, well, then I'll be happy to have that discussion with you.
Okay, I'll follow up with you, like I said in the
Okay.
emails. Again, forgive me, I've been out of town for December. And you're the mayor for the next 3-4 years, however long that's gonna be with the cut in the time. So we have to work together. We're very serious about East Washington Street. We are talking about more than just that underpass right there at Bennett College. We're also talking about the underpass right there by the IRC and my property. We're also talking about a roundabout to do some traffic mitigation. So I want to bring you up to speed on what we've been talking about and how we can work together, during the rest of your term to see what we can get accomplished over there. And I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe that ends the speakers from the floor. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Now we will move on to our consent agenda, which are items H1 through H3.
Consent agenda.
Okay, that was moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
And zero.
Anybody? That passes 9-0. Now we move on to the general business portion of our agenda. Item J.1 is an ordinance amending chapter 26, article 11 of the Greensboro Code of Ordinances titled Social District. This item was postponed from the November 15th, 2022 City Council meeting.
Motion to deny.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to deny. Is there any discussion or
I have some comments.
Mr. Holston?
Yes, regarding this social district for the downtown district. First of all, I want to say that I'm really proud that Greensboro has been a leader in the nation and at least in the state in providing these social districts that have been adopted by other cities here in the state. It's a tremendous small business support initiative, new business development. And talking about this social district, this is the primarily we're talking about the Center City Park area. That is that area that's in between Elm Street, which is currently in the social district, and also the LeBauer Park. I always think of this district, which extends all the way from South Elm up to the area of Joymongers. It's kind of a long district. And I see that as being a contiguous area that can be utilized by residents, by folks who are visiting downtown, who are taking the walk, can visit in the park, can have a seat, enjoy a beverage, and then keep shopping and helping to build economic development. Is that my theme music? What is that? Looking at, last meeting, we had Chief Thompson in and we asked about the social districts and we talked about downtown. And he was able to share that in the social district downtown, there have been 0 instances of anything that might be related to the social district, which, as most of us know, starts at 12 noon and ends at 9 p.m. Talk further with law enforcement. And it doesn't seem to be that this is a law or legal issue. When it comes to the businesses that are included, it is an opt-in process. For instance, some businesses, some restaurants, some bars have chosen not to enter. And they can do that as they so choose. So whether it's tonight or whether it's some other time in the future, I'm really excited about the social district, really excited about the Center City Park, being a part of it as a place of respite, as a place where our residents can go and relax as their social districting. So again, if not tonight, if some other time in the very near future or the near future, I would love to see Center City Park as a part of the social district.
I just like to say, I'm not anti-social district, but I think it's very important where you put social districts. And I think there are some criteria for the one we have in LeBauer Park, which are food venues, and there are none in Central City Park. And there are lots of children who come to Central City Park. And I'm opposed to that. And there may be other places that we're going to be considering in the future I may not be opposed to. But I think we have to look at that because we need to always be cognizant of what we're doing in front of the people who are going to grow up and be our leaders.
And Madam Mayor Pro Tem, to that statement, and I fully understand and appreciate that. One of the challenges is that we already have the social district right there at LeBauer Park, which is right next to the splash zone where the kids are.
You have food venues there as well.
Mhm,
And
exactly.
that's a key issue that you need to look at. But anyway, that's just what I wanted to say.
Mr. Matheny?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the pleasure of trying to discuss this with Mr. Holston a few weeks ago. I'd like to reiterate if in the light of vein of just adding property here or there, there's a specific way that this map was collaborative drawn with GPD and Downtown Greensboro Incorporated. So for instance, it doesn't go wide to capture Church Street to Spring Street so people can just walk around downtown where there's no retail shops just to have a drink. The intent of the social district and State Street, I'm very excited about, was built upon the fabric of the North Carolina state retail merchants. That was really the breadth of why that was done. There is no retail around Center City Park, period. Second of all, to just arbitrarily throw in the Tanger Center without discussing it with any city staff, including the city staff that manages the Tanger Center, is completely inappropriate. So just to say, you know, you want folks to walk through a park and have a drink, let's have a social district in Keeley Park. Let's have a social district in Barber Park. Let's have a social district in Country Park. It doesn't work like that because there's no retail.
Right.
And so, you know, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I completely agree with your comments. And I would further state as in this case, if it's not broken, don't break it. As we continue to grow retail, as we continue to grow drinking establishments, we can modify. For example, as Mr. Holston said, 12 to 9 p.m. Well, should we consider 11 a.m. to 10 p.m.? You know, those are things that we can collaboratively talk about. But I can tell you, outside of my one conversation with Mr. Holston, I have not had one person call me and ask me my opinion on adding Center City Park. I have had folks say, please don't add Center City Park. Y'all know we have had questions about Center City Park. Period. Kids want to be safe going in Center City Park. And there's no reason to do that. And I've tried to explain it. I've tried to use the common sense. I've tried to use the intent of the original state legislation. And it's good right now. Hopefully we'll grow it at some point, but I don't see ever adding Center City Park. The only reason we have the LeBauer Park in there is specifically to bring it in compliance, because technically it really wasn't in compliance when we put the kiosk in LeBauer Park adjacent to the kids' play area as well. Now, keep in mind that if somebody has a race, such as the Fun 4th race that we have July 4th, we get special permits through the city where you can have alcoholic beverages in Center City Park. So that doesn't preclude anybody from not being allowed to ask the city for a special permit.
All the
Thank you.
question.
No,
Mrs.
Madam. I think that's-
Mary Kay and then Sharon.
Yes, I think Mr. Matheny explained it very well, and there won't be much more that I will add to that. But I do want to say that, for instance, bringing up the State Street, it's kind of the same thing. That's totally wrong, because the businesses on State Street, I know that Cafe Pasta, for one, have been hoping that something like this would come forth for 40 years. So it's the businesses that drive the request for the social district, in my view. And they really wanted it, but no one from Center City Park nor anyone from LeBauer Park. We always talk about how much we should be listening to the people that it affects. So we're going to arbitrarily tell Tanger Center that they have to allow roaming alcohol around their building. I don't think that's correct, nor do I believe it's correct for Center City Park. And it's true, there are no retail businesses The idea was kind of like sip and stroll, you know, the where people will go in and if they do have a drink, then they can go to the little shop next door. State Street is perfect for that. And I think it will show revitalization of that area, but to arbitrarily want to add areas without the people that it's going to affect talking to them, I just don't think that's the right thing. And I don't think that's something that we want to do. So I support the fact that we don't need to consider this part. Thank you.
I believe those are, oh,
Sharon.
Sharon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm listening at your rationale for not supporting it, Zach. However, when this was first done, I did vote no because I felt it was being discriminatory when Center City Park was being left out. Okay. Because a lot of homeless sit in the park, some with concerns, mental illness and all of that. And so I felt it was very discriminatory that it was carved out like that. And so now today, I'm just wondering why the argument is so adamant about, well, there's no retail. So if you stop at Elm Street or Friendly Avenue, where the retail goes back up, then I understand the retail. But the way the map is carved, you're coming, you basically have just carved out Center City Park. But you went around to LaBauer Park. They don't have retail.
They do have kiosks and they do,
So, but
They have food
well,
menus too.
they got
have
food.
kiosks that sell
They got
alcohol
food.
and they've got Cafe Europa.
So, right,
which
but they
is-
got food where people are in the restaurants and have been drinking for a while. I just felt like it was very discriminatory because of the makeup of the park. And so I understand what you're saying to some degree, but I'm looking at it kind of differently, I guess. It is a concern for me. So I'm just kind of opposed to roaming and drinking, period. Because I don't want to be drinking while I'm trying to buy a shirt and somebody come in and bump into me and spill on a shirt that I want to buy, and then I can't buy it. I think that's irresponsible. And then we have laws that say there's public drunkenness. To me, we're helping perpetuate that by roving and drinking. So I'm on the fence about it because of the discriminatory factor that weighs in my mind, but I also want to keep my votes consistent that I voted no for a social district, even over on Tate Street. I just think
That's fair. I can tell you, and I'll tell anybody that when we sat down and Trey was in the room with us, when we drew this map with GPD, there is nothing absolutely discriminatory about the drawing of this map. And I understand what you're saying, and I think that is a good conversation that we can continue to grow together and understand, but this was not discriminatory. And, you know, there are folks that I see downtown and there are folks that y'all see on every part of town that don't care if a social district's around. They're going to have their beverage of choice. As a couple of moms have told me, if you think because you developed a social district that I was drinking coffee at 4 o'clock in the afternoon while walking down Elm Street, you might be a little foolish. So folks, whether they're in the park or other places, I can respectfully say unequivocally that when this map was drawn, that there is absolutely nothing discriminatory about it. Nothing.
And I'll just add one more point about
Well,
the,
and Mrs. Hoffman's
sorry.
been waiting.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hoffman.
You know, I just wanted to say, first of all, downtown, Zach, as president of Downtown Greensboro, Inc. and his organization spent a lot of time and brought the whole concept of social districting to us at council and involved city staff in the original plan and the map. I think it's very clear in terms of the boundaries, and the rationale for drawing those boundaries was very clear, and why suddenly, we have, some thinking that there's something discriminatory in terms of how this map was drawn. I mean, I'm just baffled by that, really. And see absolutely no reason to amend or change this at this point.
So there is a. Did you have a
Just
follow-up?
one more comment, just regarding the comment about the Tanger Center. Currently, the social district does run down Elm Street, runs right past the Tanger Center. So in its current configuration, if someone wanted to have a beverage and purchase it at one of the restaurants, they could walk from downtown, down by Friendly, all the way down to Joy Mongers, and they would still be within the social district. Nothing would stop them from doing that today. And if the map were drawn so that the Tanger Center were included, again, this is an opt-out process, so they wouldn't have to be in it. But then again, you can't walk into Tanger right now with anything, more or less a drink.
Matt, Brown, and Scott, I've actually spoken to our city staff and asked, would you like to be a part of the social district? And the answer is no.
And they wouldn't have to be.
So, and the whole point too is you can walk down Center City Park on Elm Street and still go and drop your cup. This should be a non-issue. Let's vote.
So there is a motion on the floor, a motion to deny, yeses to deny. It was moved by Mr. Matheny, seconded by Ms. Abuzawaiter. Council, please vote. And yeses to deny. My powers of clairvoyance are saying 6-3.
Can you work that one out?
6-3?
7-2. I think it's 7-2.
7-2. Are we going to Davis
Councilmember
next?
Hoffman.
I think 5-4.
Oh, no. Pari-mutuel.
Ah,
8-1.
What was it?
8-1.
so you voted for it.
No,
You
I didn't.
voted to deny.
I voted to deny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's 8-1. I guess my run of luck is.
Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Hold it. The
It's-
motion was to deny, so
Yeah,
that
so
was
that's
the,
right.
that was the vote, yes.
It was denied by 8 people.
Yes,
Oh,
you did. You
okay.
did. J2 is an ordinance amending the Equipment Services Fund fiscal year 2022-2023 budget in the amount of $1,282,500. That was moved by Ms. Abuzawaiter, seconded by Dr. Wells.
And 0.
That passes 9-0. Item J3 is a resolution to adopt neighborhood reinvestment areas.
Move the item.
Let the mayor vote for that.
Moved by Mr. Holston, seconded by Mrs. Thurm.
Let the mayor move.
Council, please vote. That passes 9-0. I do think it's important that we reach out to GRRA so that they are aware of these new down payment assistance plans, especially the community heroes and the new reinvestment areas. The discussion we had, they were very excited about the new neighborhoods and thought that this would really make a difference.
I've had a conversation with them to come to speak at one of their meetings, and I know that Sophia Crisp is also speaking to a large group, maybe this week. So they should be getting that directly from both she and I in the next few weeks.
Sophia is being sworn in as president of the
believe so.
GRRA board. Sophia Chris. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Item J4 is a resolution authorizing funding in the amount of $1,500,000 for the American Rescue Plan enabled projects. And this project is specifically for habitat.
For what?
And so
So this is for Habitat 1.5 million.
Okay.
So Madam Mayor, may I speak to this item,
Yes.
please? So let me just, I want to speak briefly about why I'm voting the way I'm voting, why I asked for this item to be pulled out. So while certainly I support Habitat and I appreciate all that they do and everything they do, my initial reaction to the 1.5 was to at least move 0.5 of the money over into excess housing spending. Habitat's going to be getting some money from Bank of America soon, big announcement coming. So they're going to have some funding to do some things. And so I would have supported the 1 million, but the 500,000 I would have liked to have seen moved and into excess, because there are other builders out there who want to help build in East Greensboro and other communities, and they are not getting the opportunity to do so. And we had an opportunity here to take some of this money and set aside for some of them to get that benefit. And so that's why I propose that we give 1 million to Habitat, but take that 500,000 and add it to the money that we had put into the coffers for additional housing money, for opportunity. They are minority builders who want to build, but we could help them with this money, with tie-ins. They want to be able, tie-ins to water and sewer is $9,000 sometimes. That $9,000 is a barrier sometimes to build it. And we could help facilitate and fund some of that to allow them to be able to do that. They could put that other money into the house, make the house better, give a better product. And so that's why I can't support this item tonight the way it is. Yes, I support Habitat. They got a house dedication coming Saturday. They just text me, you coming? Great. But we have got to open up the door of opportunity greater than we are doing. And this was a chance to do so. Thank you.
I had moved the item. I thought that we had discussed how we were gonna spend this money, and it was just making it, official. Because I thought we had discussed that. I don't remember us talking about separating the money. Because I agree with you, what you're saying, but the way it's,
This conversation I had with Mr. Davis, who else was in the room when I had this conversation? It was me and who else was it? City manager? And was it Ms. Johnson?
No, I didn't have that conversation with you.
So I had this conversation with the city manager, and when we all had our different meetings to look at ARP monies and how we wanted to see that monies allocated. And we had this discussion. That was my rationale, not for necessarily not giving Habitat any money for them to build. And I hope they build more than just in East Greensboro, because we need diverse types of housing that matches the character of our neighborhoods. And we need to say, if we're funding them, we also can instruct them on certain ways we want the product to look in the neighborhoods that you're coming in. But when we talk, I said, we were talking about where do we find additional monies for things. And I said, I would support Habitat getting the 1 million, but let's take that other 500,000 and put it in that additional pot to be able to do some other things.
So yes, Councilwoman Hightower had that conversation when we met with you individually, that she had expressed a preference for keeping Habitat's funding to 1 million and moving 500,000 over to where we have additional housing allocation. But what we did not find was support for that among other council members. And hence why when we came to you on December 20, we kept it at 1.5 for Habitat for Humanity. And that's what you directed us to do, hence why we're here today. But you can discuss this resolution and decide if that's what you still want to do. But where we are today is based on the direction you gave us on December 20. keep $1.5 million for Habitat for Humanity. Understand also, maybe this will also help Councilman Hightower. What you're doing tonight is approving resolution authorizing the allocation of these funds. We're still going to come back with contracts for each organization like Habitat for Humanity. At that point in time, you could decide how you want to spend that they should spend that 1.5 million at that point in time. I understand not wanting to concentrate a particular type of housing in a particular geography. I do get that. But when you have the opportunity to discuss this at a later time in the future, that's a conversation we can have as part of that contract with Habitat for Humanity, if that makes sense.
And I appreciate that explanation. And when we have these small group meetings like we had and discussion, I understand that what I said, and I don't know how far it went, but we're gonna send it back to us, which I think you did, and looked at how the monies was broken down and moved over. And we moved over some of the ideas when you would wind up having 2 million into that additional housing money, which tonight we're going to put $1 million in the DPA, the down payment assistance program that we've been doing with #100. And I get that. And then the other $1 million you got set aside for micro units or something like that, diverse type housing. But this was additional monies. When we have contractors in the community that are looking at us and saying, you know, what are they doing? They got this money. How are they helping invest in the community? I'm here. I want to build. I'm building. But sometimes the product they build may not be quite to the standard. And they say, well, okay, if we can get help with the water sewer tie-in, which is around $9,000, I'll build the product. Make the house affordable in the community. And this is the opportunities we're missing out on. When you concentrate and saturate one builder with everything, we gotta change that dynamic, how we do business. That has been one of the problems in our community. It's looked at as, well, the poor folk over there. We gotta change that image. We gotta change that. And we can do that by looking at types of design of the product, the way we do business, the incentives that we offer. When we invest in this, we gotta change the way we invest in these products. I understand I'm in the minority. I get it.
Well, I happen to agree with you. I happen to agree with you because it is the way we're gonna have to be more diverse in what we're doing. And if we want to do that, we've got to do it. It's a matter of committing and doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
I like Habitat. I send them little contribution all the time, but diversity is very important.
It's very important.
All right, I hear, and I have moved the item, but I'm also listening, the argument that Councilwoman Hightower is making is a legitimate argument. Now, I know we've met in individual groups. That's why I said I hadn't heard us discuss it like this, but we met in individual groups and you took what the majority came up with. But I hadn't even thought about the money being separate. There is, and I hear it from minority contractors who are trying to do projects and they say, we just don't have enough money. It looks like you all give the money to other folks all the time. And we hear that over and over. And $500,000 would help a lot. And Habitat for Humanity has done work for years and they continue to do excellent work and they help our community. Even though she's saying something about building in East Greensboro, we need homes everywhere. So I don't mind them building in East Greensboro, but I am concerned about the argument that she makes. I think it makes sense.
I do want to point out that we
had a work session December 20th.
Stalled it. What do you do?
I was.
We met, we had a work session.
And I know
We did not have a work session on the matter.
We had a work
session
session
around
on
ARPA
December
funds.
20th. to just discuss this
Specific on the
issue.
20th.
I made my argument, Ms. Hoffman, and that's the way I feel. That's the community I live in, and we got to do a better job.
Mrs. Thurm?
Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, I appreciate that we each had a chance for one-on-one conversation with the city manager and assistant city manager. Quite frankly, I felt very passionately about some things that did not get included, but it was the will of the group. We did have a work session just 2 weeks ago where we said, okay, this is what the group, this is a summary. You all brought us the summary, and this is what we heard the group as a whole say. And we had an opportunity at that time to then make changes to that or have further discussion about it. And the group as a whole agreed to that. I don't disagree with what Councilwoman Hightower is saying. There are some other buckets of housing money that have not been specified, and there's some sizable buckets of housing money that have not been specified that are in the ARP funds that we're about to vote on. We can talk about that to great lengths, but I think as a whole, this council agreed at our work session to move forward with these figures. I would like to suggest that we do what we said in our work session. As I said, I'm disappointed in some of the things that I thought were right for District 5. And if you look at District 5 spending, quite frankly, in several categories, we are far behind every single district. But this is what the group said. This is what the council agreed to in our work session. And I will support this as is.
Dr. Wells, do you want to withdraw your motion?
Yes, I do.
So,
And I
that
would
is-
like to make a substitute motion to deny this item
Well-
and come back and review it.
So there was a motion, Mrs. Thurm moved it as is with Mr. Boozawaiter still as a second. I'm not sure. Mr. City Attorney, help me out here. So we have a motion on the floor to approve. Mrs. Hightower made a motion to deny. Which one do we take first?
I made a substitute, and I'm happy to make a substitute motion to reduce it down to 1 million and move the 0.5 into the other bucket, because quite honestly, even that additional housing bucket that
So-
Mrs. Thurm talked
Okay,
about
but
So-
let's
is
just,
being spent.
so we
Dr.
have,
Wells made a motion and then withdrew the motion.
she did, but then it was moved by Mrs. Thurm and seconded by Ms. Boozawaiter to pass the resolution as is. Then Mrs. Hightower made a substitute motion,
To deny.
which I believe she got a second from Dr.
We have to vote
Wells.
on, I believe since my motion was on the floor and seconded, that we have to vote on that. If it's turned down, then Councilwoman Hightower makes her motion. Is that correct?
I think it's within discretion of the chair, but typically the motion that's on first would be voted first.
You would have to accept the substitute motion
I think, right, if you don't accept the substitute motion.
and
And
Then-
I'm not
Okay, so
accepting at
the-
this
I mean,
time.
there's two
But-
sides of
so the
same coin.
motion on the floor is Tammy and
I have a question first, if allowed.
Mhm.
So I'm just a little confused here because we had the work session. And my understanding is that work sessions are where we hash out differences or we figure out which is the right way to go. Is there something new that has transpired since work session that I'm not aware of that has caused the issue with wanting to pull it back? I understand that we have issues that have been going on for years and years, and we're trying to slowly correct those. Of course, we all know it doesn't happen overnight, but I'm just starting to wonder, did something new happen between work session where we said we were going to move forward with 1.5? And then now we get to city council, which we had already said we were going to approve this. And now we're changing our minds because it makes me think that something new has transpired that I'm not aware of.
So Mary Kay, if I can answer your question since you asked, no, there's nothing new. The fact of the matter is that you all had already decided it's already a majority. Again, I'm telling you why I'm opposed to the item. That's what I'm telling you.
You don't need
And
to raise
so
your hand at me.
what
I'm
I'm
just
saying
asking.
is I'm opposed to the item and made the argument. And
So
I-
the-
when
so
I
the-
made, so when I made the
I wasn't
argument,
finished. The
there-
majority said that we.
but Sharon is not majority. That's what you gotta get.
That's-
Sharon is not a majority. If Sharon says she does not agree, and
And that's fine.
rather than me vote absolute no, I say I'm opposed to the item for the reasons that I gave.
And that's
That-
fine.
That I'm
So there,
opposed
all
to.
right, so there
so-
is a motion on the floor and a second, and the first motion was for the way that it's written in the agenda, which
I
is
just-
the 1.5.
I just have to say, I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. And I think that I have the right to ask that.
Okay, Mary Kay,
So
I think when you saying maybe you missed something. I think when we had the work session, nobody brought it up.
Right.
And all of us are subject to change.
I understand. I understand.
Whenever new information comes in, when you learn something new, then that alters your first thought. And I think that's what happened with Sharon. I don't know. I can't speak for Sharon because she'll be getting on me for I'm speaking for her. But I think that some other information came in.
That's what I'm
and
saying.
and that's
what I'm
it
asking.
is. Because that argument was not made because I would have taken the same stance
Right.
downstairs, but it wasn't brought up. And now hearing this, it makes a lot of sense. And so when I believe when you get new information, you need to process that
Right.
information.
And
so we need
just
to
one-
vote on it.
But just one of, when you talk about new information and you did, apparently you didn't hear what I said in my statement. No, you didn't, because you said new information. So when I say
All right,
but January
We're
13th,
not gonna.
I
go back and
said
forth.
that I said Habitat was getting money from Bank of America. Did you hear me say that early? Right. So that is newer information and that announcement's coming out. So that's why I'm saying they have some funding stream. It's not like they don't. So that's what I was saying.
So there is a motion on the floor with a second for the resolution as is. Council, please vote. I'm not guessing. And that passes 5-4. Those opposed were Mayor Pro Tem Johnson, Councilwoman Hightower, Councilman Holston, and Councilwoman Wells. I read that out because I got a notice that our vote totals are not showing up on the YouTube.
Really, you should have read who voted for it too.
Well, those vote for it.
Look at all people you didn't mention.
All right, item number J5 is an ordinance amending fiscal year 2022-2023 general fund budget for American Rescue Plan enabled projects in the amount of $1,500,000. That is just the companion that goes along with the first one. So if you voted no, vote no.
All right, thanks.
Moved by Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. And again, that passes 5-4. Those in favor are myself, Mr. Matheny, Mrs. Abuzawader, Mrs. Thurm, and Mrs. Hoffman. Item number J6 is a resolution authorizing commitment of funding in the amount of $30,393,056 for American Rescue Plan enabled projects.
What are those?
Madam Mayor,
Mr. Matheny?
there's an item in here that relates to downtown Greensboro. I know I missed the December 20th work session.
Mhm.
And I know we haven't discussed this in light of that item being in this. I would respectfully ask to be recused or abstain from voting.
That would be for the container hub, 1 million for the container hub.
Correct.
All in favor, say aye.
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 What is this?
What's-
30 million?
This is to, so Mr. Matheny is recused from the container hub downtown strategic plan implementation. Mr. Holston?
Well, never mind. I'm good.
This is not.
So we'll take all of those items minus the $1 million. We do have a motion from Mrs. Hoffman and a second by Mrs. Thurm. And that would be for those items minus the container hub.
Councilmember Hoffman and Holston.
Just a point of reference here. Councilman Matheny recused himself, or asked to be recused because of an item for downtown Greensboro, Inc. Am I in that same category or am I in a different category?
Because of
The Greensboro Housing Coalition.
Well, you haven't asked to be recused. You have not asked to be recused. Is that the category you're talking about?
Correct.
The category of people that asked to be recused versus the category of people that did not ask to be recused?
So would you like to be recused from the 500,000 for the Greensboro Housing
Yes, I would.
Coalition?
Yes.
All in favor of recusing Mr. Holston, say aye. So now, item J6 is less the container hub money and the Greensboro Housing Coalition money. Is that clear, Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, I think that's what you've done. Yes.
Okay. Council, please vote.
Didn't we vote on it already? Cause I voted.
No, because then Mr. Holston
So we
then
gotta
asked about his.
We got to
recusal.
revote.
We just said
We-
yes or no.
We have marked
ahead.
him as recused now, so that vote is showing complete.
Mhm. No, because we were voting for everything, but we were voting on everything but those two items.
I'm lost.
But then Mr. Holston voted against we took that item out of the 30 million.
See, my vote screen isn't coming back up because I voted.
It is, yes,
So I am recused from 38.
no, what we did was we pulled that 500,000 out, so you could vote on everything except that
Oh.
500,000.
Oh, so I can vote on, okay, all right. So we gotta start over then.
Can we re-vote on J6, please?
Which one?
This will be for the
Because we were voting.
30,393,000 minus 1.5 million, which will be voted on in two separate votes.
Which are we voting on? 30 million? Is that the one?
Less the money for the container hubs and less the money for the Greensboro Housing Coalition.
So the
Madam Mayor,
resolution
we're
is
setting
30
that up
million.
for you right now.
So that's, yeah, that was moved by Mrs. Thurman, seconded by Dr. Wells. Council, please vote.
Okay. Waiting for a vote thing to come up.
And that passes 8-1 with Mr. Matheny voting against. Now we are going to vote for the
Is
one.
is he exempt or is he voting against? Okay.
So now we have the $1 million for the implementation of the downtown strategic plan for the container hubs. And Mr. Matheny is recused from this vote.
Okay.
Move the item.
Moved by
Second.
Mrs. Thurm, seconded by Mr. Holston. And that passes 8-0 with one recusal. And now we will vote on the 500,000 for the Greensboro Housing Coalition.
Move the item.
Mr. Holston is recused.
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader.
500,000.
Yeah.
Which item is 500,000?
That's the Greensboro housing.
We pulled it out of that 30.
Oh, I got you. Okay. I understand.
Kind of like a consent agenda. And that passes 8-0 with Mr. Holston recusing. Let's see. Now we move on to J.7, which is an ordinance amending fiscal year 2022-23 general fund budget, employee insurance fund, general insurance fund, and the general capital improvement fund budget for American Rescue Plan enabled projects.
Move the item.
Moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by Ms. Abuzawader. And that passes 9-0. That is the end of our published agenda. Any boards and commissions, Mrs. Hightower?
Do you want me to do this?
No, not tonight.
Why don't we do that right after we do boards and commissions? Dr. Wells, Mr. Matheny, Mrs. Thurm, Mrs. Hoffman, Ms. Abuzawader, Mr. Holston,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem.
No.
Okay. No boards or commissions. Mayor Pro Tem, you do have a.
I do. Madam Mayor, I move that effective December the 1st, 2022, the City Council of the City of Greensboro award the city attorney a merit increase, settling his new salary at $260,000.
Move the item.
So moved by Mrs. Hightower, seconded by, was it Mr. Holston? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 9-0. Council comments, Mrs. Hightower?
I'd like to say, I'd like to get a status on the disparity study, where we are in the process of that. I have not heard from anyone, but how that's going. So if somebody can report that back to me, I would appreciate it. Because my concern is I'd like to see what the software is doing, the B2G software and the database of how we're keeping MWBs and how if they're even being contacted for work. Because the more and more I look at what we do, the less and less I see them being part of contracts and city contracts. Even tonight, it was an item for the mega site. And yes, it was a professional service, but it doesn't seem like that we're even included in that. So I'd like to hear from that and hear from the disparity study. So if somebody can report that to me, I would appreciate it. I also, and I think I was clear earlier, that I really would like to get a little bit more information. Yes, I got the email, saw where the email came on the police incident that occurred last year, but I would like to be brought up to speed a little bit. It's good to be informed. It's better to have the knowledge and not need it than to need it and not have it. And that's how I feel. So if somebody could make that happen, I would appreciate it. And thank you to everybody who sent me well wishes while I was been sick for the last 10 days. Please get your booster shots, your flu shots and everything else. Even though I'm not sure if that helps, but do that. And thank you.
Dr. Wells?
I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. And I was trying to find all of the information about the Martin Luther King celebration that will be on the Sunday, which will be before we have another meeting. It will be at St. Matthew's Church, and we're inviting people to come at 4 in the evening, sponsored by the Greensboro Pulpit Forum. And I was listening to the news while I was away, and they had on the New York news, they said Patterson, New Jersey is opening their first park for children with this first playground for children with disabilities. I felt really great because we've had ours at Kilby Park for almost 2 years now. So we are ahead, and I want to congratulate our Parks and Rec for being ahead of the game. So that's it.
Mr. Matheny? Mrs. Hoffman? Mrs. Thurm?
I'd just like to take a minute to acknowledge hundreds of people that stepped up in a big way the week of Christmas between our water department and field ops and Metro 911, GPD, fire. The weather, the conditions over the holiday period was just something that, quite frankly, I don't remember witnessing in Greensboro before. It caused a host of problems throughout the city. We got a listing, and I think there were well over 20 water main breaks and damage in rec centers and schools and everywhere. And between everybody, it was just an amazing job that people left their families, left their homes in that weather. I can't begin to imagine what it would be like to be working in a ditch with a broken pipe with cold water and the winds howling, or directing traffic around, street lights and lines that were down. It's just our city staff stepped up in such a big way, and I think we owe them a big thank you for that. So that's my only comment for tonight.
Thank you. Mrs. Abuzwaiter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had on my list about thanking all the departments and who work on the temperature. Many of them work 14-hour shifts, and then many of them worked 14-hour shifts and then went straight back, got a nap, and then went back out there. And this is like Christmas weekend, everybody. I mean, this was like something that we had not seen in years. I think the last freeze like that was in 1985, according to the meteorologists. And I do know that our staff, our city manager, our assistant city manager, everybody was on board working, keeping us updated on everything that was going on and, where the water main breaks were, so we could let our constituents know if we had that ability. And, it's amazing the way the city came together. It really, really was. So thanks to everyone. I know we had water resources, field ops, public safety, many departments included, neighborhood development, everybody was on board. Something I wanted to bring up that actually Mrs. Hightower and I brought up over the years, and it just never really goes anywhere, is we are getting more and more complaints about leaves clogging the storm drains. I know this year has been an inordinate amount of leaves that have come down from all the trees. I don't know if it's the weather or what. I know that field ops is trying to keep up. with their contractors picking up the leaves. But I dare say, for a lot of the people that are contacting, I know I've gotten several emails, it is becoming a public safety issue because some streets are almost totally blocked because of leaves in the streets. I don't know what we can do. I know there is an ordinance that says don't put them in the street, but people don't want their grass to die. So I don't know what kind of solution we can come up to, or can we give people warnings? Or, you know, what should we do about this? So Mr. City Manager and everybody else, can you put your heads together? We've got to come up with something, because especially when the leaves are wet, you know, I've slid into intersections almost because the leaves are in the middle of the intersection. So it's gotten to be where it's really a public safety hazard. I know Mrs. Hightower and I brought it up a couple of years ago, and all we did was get knocked down and 200 emails saying you all can't do this. But you know, there are cities that don't even pick up leaves. And we're spending $1.5 million a year to pick up leaves, and they are clogging our storm drains.
But Mary Kay, we're probably spending more cleaning out our drains and sewers
Yeah.
and all that. You know what I mean?
So I don't know what we can come up with, but to be honest,
Stop.
it's really causing some hazards for bikers, for walkers, for joggers, for cars, pedestrians, you know, everything. So I don't know what we can do, but Mr. City Manager, would you kind of maybe see what other cities are doing? I know that a lot of cities are going back to where the landscapers have to put leaves into the plastic bags to be picked up with the yard waste. A lot of the cities are doing that. So I don't know, but it to me, it is becoming a public safety hazard. That was, and I have one more thing. Please don't forget about the greatest of all time awards at the Carolina Theater, January 14th. The mayor and I are going to do a proclamation. This is a moratorium on gun violence. Unfortunately, there was a young lady killed New Year's morning, lovely lady who worked hard in our community. So, you know, we really want to try to put out, you know, information and make sure that, you know, some of this gun violence can stop. So the the greatest of all time awards, January 14th, Carolina Theater. Go online, theorangefamilies.org. And you can get a ticket. It's only $18.50, which is a deal for a ticket for a full evening of entertainment. So just want to try to get everyone to try to do that. And that's all, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
I just want to say Happy New Year to our citizens, and I want to commend our staff. Whenever we have a situation, they're always out there. They're committed to excellent service, and I just thank them because it was cold, and I mean, you know, it wasn't easy work, but they did a great job. And I just want to encourage our citizens to be nonviolent, to not go at somebody to hurt them, but to either agree to disagree or to just turn and leave. There's far too much violence in our city, and we want to reduce that. We'd like to wipe it out, but certainly to reduce it. So think about it, because sometimes you have to put yourself in a position that somebody you know and perhaps love has been in and really got hurt. So I wish you a very prosperous 2023 and a very nonviolent 2023.
Amen. I second that emotion, Mayor Pro Tem, all the
Second
way.
that emotion. All right.
Mr. Holston?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a couple of items tonight. Some you've heard already, but I really want to thank the city staff and not only the executive staff for keeping us updated all throughout continuously, but especially to those who are on the streets, boots on the ground, who are making the difference in keeping the lives of our residents during those horrific cold temperatures. I also want to thank our executive staff for working very closely with Duke Energy to ensure that our residents got notices of the rolling blackouts, so that they wouldn't be surprises going forward. And that's going to be very important, because a lot of folks have a lot of things going on at their homes, whether they're living with elderly, they're living with different types of equipment that needs power, and they just need to know in advance what's going on. Also want to tie into the leaves. There have been several times that I've been driving down some streets and those leaves are just absolutely causing a public safety hazard by being on both sides of the road, forcing the vehicles to the middle, causing some difficulty. So if we need to, let's take some steps, whether it's getting them up with field ops, or if it's some other type of ordinance or resolution that we need to pass to ensure that our residents are doing the right thing. Next, going back to the inclement weather, we talked about the city staff being out there, but I had the opportunity, I guess it was that Friday night before the Christmas, it was the 23rd. I was down at the IRC, and the white flag had been implemented, and talked with several of the employees there and trying to figure out exactly how that impacted them as employees, as staff members. And found out there was one staff member who's a mother of 3 children, I think 5, 7, and 11. But she spent her time at the IRC the Christmas morning because of the white flag. So we need to make sure that we're properly funding, properly operating, doing all we possibly can, because there are other impacts to what goes on. You know, sometimes the IRC can be used as a punching bag, but they stepped up and they stepped in, and I think they housed up to 100 residents.
107.
107,
Mhm.
107, up to 107. And they could have taken some more, but there is another toll to that, and that is to the staff, to the employees. And that is, if we need to find additional funding, additional staff, additional opportunities to make sure that that burden is lessened, so that we can have mothers spend their Christmas morning with their 5-year-old, 7-year-old, and 11-year-old children. At the same time, I was just fortunate enough to be down there when they were making the first move to the pallet homes over off of West Wendover, and saw the first resident move in, had a chance to speak with him. And I would tell you that he was so grateful to have a place to call his own during that terrible weather. I think the pallet homes are an excellent addition to the other tools we're using for housing. I think there's some opportunities there that we can bring in some partners, some collaborators, and make them even better, and even more and even better, so that come March, when these residents are scheduled to leave, hopefully there's some services for them to go to, but if not, we'll have some additional opportunities, some additional housing opportunities, temporary, transitional, and more permanent. And then last, I'm going to say back to the diversity calendar from the last meeting. Coming up on January 5th, the members of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity will be celebrating their J5, their 111th founding anniversary. So congratulations to them and to the Greensboro alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi. Congratulations. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just a couple things. I think we've all gotten emails regarding the short-term rentals, and I want to make sure that we are on schedule for that to go to planning and zoning this month. It'll come to council then in February for implementation, July 1st. We did have a work session on it. I think back in June, we probably need to have another work session before it comes to council. But my understanding is that the majority of cases that are being heard by the Board of Adjustments right now are on short-term rentals and accessory dwelling units, ADUs. I think that the Board of Adjustments needs some direction on what council will be doing this as they're making those decisions. So I want to make sure that that doesn't fall off the radar and that we get that done. I too want to thank city staff for the amazing job they've done. They always do, but especially the last 2 weeks during holiday times when, people are used to being with their families and friends. They were out in the freezing cold, many times working on water line breaks and doing other things. And I don't know if people really appreciate what it is that they do day in and day out, but it's kind of highlighted when there are issues like we had with this Arctic frost. I also want to talk about the IRC, and I firmly believe that they saved lives the last 2 weeks. They were open They averaged between, there were roughly 85 people who checked into the warming center between the 17th and the 28th. When they did the shelter in place from the 23rd through the 26th, those are the Christmas holidays. 95 people, an average of 95 people checked in each 12-hour period, the lowest being 78, the highest being 107. That is a lot of people, and that does not include the people at the Regency, and the Regency is at capacity. There are 50 people at the Regency Hotel right now. Those rooms are reserved for people that have mobility issues, that have chronic medical conditions, that they may have mental health issues. Those rooms are reserved for them and a caregiver. Regarding the doorway project, we currently have 17 people placed in the doorway project. 22 people are moving in this week and 10 people are moving in next week. I do think that's really going to make a huge difference. Mr. Holston, as you said, people were thrilled to be able to have a place, even if it's just temporary, to call their own. I did ask for kind of an accounting of who we were getting referrals from on specifically the doorway project and the Regency Inn. We got 42 referrals from the IRC, 25 referrals from Tiny Homes Community Development, 21 referrals from Partners Ending Homelessness, 8 from Greensboro Urban Ministry, 6 from Cone Health, and 3 from Oak Street Medical. Those are people who are in the units right now. They came through those caseworkers. So we do see a number of COC agencies on this list that are working with the IRC to make sure that people are housed. I did ask the COC, Bernita, to give me a list of who was doing shelters, and she had made that request, I think, in November, to get some feedback. There were 3 organizations in High Point that responded. The only people that responded in Greensboro to that email of who's doing sheltering was the IRC on behalf of the Regency and their white flag shelters. I do think the COC is doing really good work. I think we just have to get a better handle on what their capacity is. So as we're looking about increasing that capacity, we know what the line is that we're working from. I hope that others are also doing sheltering. I'm sure that the urban ministry has people, and I think the Salvation Army, but there needs to be a better line of communication so that when we get those phone calls, we know exactly where people are going and where they can be sent.
Madam Mayor, the Salvation Army is not doing sheltering because they're building.
Mhm.
Okay, their building is shut down. They're going to have to either redo the building and they're going to do or tear it down and build it again.
So
it has some kind of hazardous issue in it. So they've moved all their people who were in shelters out into hotels. And that's the capacity they have. That's how they're helping.
So they still are sheltering, but it would be
it's the
good.
people that were in there.
Yes.
That they moved in the hotels.
Yeah,
And every
so-
now and then you can call them and see if they will put somebody in a hotel. They will make an effort to do that as well. But welfare reform does that as well.
So that is definitely good information to have, that while the shelter may be closed, they are still sheltering people in hotels, and if they've got capacity with vouchers or whatever. So I do want to say thank you to everybody who worked really hard during this Arctic blast, and they work every storm. The time they spend away from their family, we truly appreciate.
Yeah, and I want to thank the staff. I didn't get to thank them either, but they know because I talk to them sometime regularly. So they do a good job, and they really, really do.
They do.
I appreciate them and Chris and everybody sending emails, trying to keep up. So thank you all very much.
So, we did start off this year with a homicide on New Year, New Year's Eve day. And that was, that is troubling. A young woman was killed. Januaries seem to be very difficult months historically when we look at incidents that happen. I think the police department and community organizations are doing a lot of good work to bring down the violence. And, we'll get the year-end numbers from GPD that they report to the FBI. So they've got to be good numbers. And, I'm proud to say that we have been seeing a reduction. We saw a reduction the year before last. We saw a reduction this year. I hope that we will continue to see that reduction as we work with our first responders and work with our community partners, because, clearly we can't do it without the input of our community. And I think that they have also made a really big difference as we have seen those numbers come down over the last 2 years. And I do have to say, I was remiss, and Mrs. Hightower kind of took me to the woodshed for it. I was remiss in mentioning the family that lost 3 children in December. And that was, that was a real trauma for that family, for those parents to live with that type of a loss. We've seen it before. It's also a trauma for the people in the neighborhood who knew those children and drive by that house every day and see it boarded up, and that constant remembrance. It's also a trauma for our first responders. I can't imagine what the phone calls were to 911. And then to have police and fire to have to work that it is just a terrible tragedy all the way around. And whatever we can do to eliminate things like that happening in the future, I think are really, really important. So, Mr. City Manager.
Well, first, I want to say thank you for acknowledging our staff for the work they've done in the last several days, especially as we had the blast. We really are grateful to each one of them. We have some of the best staff. I was sharing that with the mayor earlier today, so I'm grateful to you for that, acknowledging that. We also want to remind you that January 10 at 9 a.m. swearing in for Chief Thompson at the Carolina Theater. I'm sure it's on your calendar. Just wanted to remind you of that. We'll appreciate you being there. Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney.
I too want to say thank you. As a city attorney, you get the slings and arrows of a lot of people. It's much appreciated to hear from my client that you appreciate the work that I do and my team, but it's personal and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn? That has been moved and seconded, and all in favor say aye. Opposed? And we are adjourned.